If you'd please welcome Paul Zube.
Good morning. I'm glad you all stuck around. First of all, I'm not going to dance anymore. Sorry. If that's why you were staying, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm really glad that everyone's here. This event wouldn't be this event without an audience. And I've really enjoyed working with all these other speakers. This has kind of demonstrated our diversity as a university, that all these faculty members from very different disciplines can come together, talk about a common theme, but that all of their talks actually come together very nicely, even though we didn't coordinate it that way. And what I would like to concentrate on is that we're missing connections between what we're actually doing and how the world is changing and what our students need. The spoiler alert for this question is no, I don't think it is. I get to teach in the communication department, and I teach public speaking. So hopefully this is how it's supposed to look, because this is what I tell them, this is what you're supposed to do. And that's a general education requirement here. And I would love if our students were like this student on your left, where they're excited about gen eds. But in reality, they tend to be not so pumped that this is what they're going to do, that they have to do this, it's a checklist. Why do I have to do this general education requirement? I'm paying money for this, let's just get through this so I can go on to what I'm interested in. And I get to hear kind of the negative sides of general education, or the comments from our students, such as, when am I ever going to use this in my job? How do you expect me to take this knowledge and use it in anything? I have no idea what you're talking about or why this is important. And most recently I heard, don't you know that this is just Ferris State University? We're essentially a vocational school. Those are troubling things to hear. It's troubling for a couple of reasons. First, as professionals, that's a tough message to get all the time. Now, in a public speaking class, I get the opportunity to tell them that, well, you're probably going to use some type of speaking presentation skill in your job. It's important that you develop this. I have a nice easy out. But a lot of our colleagues on this campus don't have quite as easy a job of articulating why this knowledge is important, even though it is incredibly valuable. And it's not just a humanities problem. What if you had a student who said, why do I need to take this math class? I have a calculator for that. Why do I have to take any classes? I have an internet for that. That's a problem. It's also a problem because now I'm starting to be an old man, and I'm going to rant at these kids. But most importantly, the reason that I find those comments problematic is because we live in a republic, and this republic is only as good as the qualities of citizens that we put into it. Like any process, if it's garbage in, it's going to be garbage out. And we as educators have an important role in making sure that this 200-plus-year-old experiment in self-government works. Now, how we solve that problem kind of depends on what you think college is about. I'm sure many people agree with that quote in the upper left-hand corner. We are afraid that our students agree with the upper right-hand corner. And kind of our way of compromising is this bottom picture, where we are preparing students to have jobs, we're giving them obvious skill sets that they can go out and get employed. And I want that for my students. An employed former student is a wonderful student, but I want more for my students than that. Jobs is not the end-all, be-all. And it's increasingly, I think, reducing in how important it is. We need to start measuring these things differently. So what's successful for our students? Currently, we measure it in this way. Now, I do quantitative research. I like quantitative research. It's nice. I can do trends. I can make a line. That says everything. It's only as good, though, as the questions that you're asking. These are the questions that we ask of kind of our university. How is our GDP? Or I'm sorry, how is our GPA? I'm going to get to GDP in a moment. Are our students getting through degree requirements that we've come up with? Can they check off that list? All these things we can look at, and we can have numbers for that. But I don't know if anymore these are the important questions to ask. And the reason is because these are some numbers from our current economic situation. These gray areas here, which the laser pointer doesn't get to, so hopefully you can see them, are the most recent recessions. Now previously, this red line is the one I want you to pay most attention to. That's employment, percentage of people who are employed. Previously, all of our indicators of economics moved together. So if the economy is doing well, employment's doing well. First recession hits, everything kind of plummets. All the other indicators come back. GDP, which I accidentally said a moment ago, profits, investments, all those start going up. Employment kind of stays steady. We don't need those people anymore. The second recession hits, everything kind of crashes again, but we're actually doing pretty well. Right now, our economy is growing. It doesn't necessarily feel that way, but our economy is growing. Investments are good, corporate profits are good, so how come this employment number is so crashed? And I believe that that has something to do, even though there are many, many reasons why it might, with this, the internet. And Serious Cat believes that the internet is very serious business. And I love the internet. It's one of the things that I study. I study politics, and I study the internet, and I put them together. And I think that that's a great place for me to play intellectually. When I'm on Facebook, I'm doing research. When you're on Facebook, you're wasting your time. But what's problematic about the internet is this might be the first time in kind of human history that a technology shows up that replaces jobs and doesn't create more aggregate jobs. Now, this claim has been made before, I'm certain. I'm thinking the horse and buggy industry. Don't get those cars. We need these jobs. I make a buggy. I want to keep making this buggy. If you go cars, there's never going to be any other jobs ever. As residents of Michigan, we know that's not necessarily true. The automobile industry was able to build an economy where unskilled laborers could send their kids to college, and we all benefit as a result of that. But I think the internet is different, and it may take some time for that to pan out, but I believe that's why we're seeing those unemployment numbers stay low even as the economy is growing. And I'm going to use a hometown company for me and a new company as an example. So I'm from Binghamton, New York. That's the birthplace of IBM. Currently, even now, IBM employs over 400,000 people. At its height, it employed more people, and it touched lots of people's lives. It was an innovative company. It was kind of the dominant technology company, particularly in the 80s. Google is kind of in that position now, but it has more reach than IBM ever wished it could have. It influences our lives even if we're not users, and they only have 55,000 employees. They don't need that many employees because computers, network computers, automation means that we don't need to have people doing that stuff. And we, as faculty, are not immune from this effect either. There are plenty of private universities who are happy to use the internet to say, I will give you a skill, you pay me money, I'll see you later. Stanford University, MIT, and Harvard have started offering free online classes. Last year, Stanford University offered their most popular undergraduate class, which was a computer science class. In this class, they had 325,000 students enrolled. Not everyone finished, but 43,000 did. Now, you can't currently get a degree with this, but you can get a certificate. If all we have to offer is skills and employability, we may not be able to compete with that. That's not what our students are expecting from us or what they deserve from us. That's not enough value for how much they spend. The internet has also introduced all these user tools. Wikipedia is an amazing repository of information. That's done for free. They have really tiny costs. It's just a server. If I need to look up some theory that Professor Zube is talking about in his public speaking class, I can go there. Why should I bother going to class? YouTube is also full of do-it-yourself videos. If there's a skill, I can go to YouTube and I can figure out how to do that. Why should I pay you so much money if all you're going to do is give me a skill? And so I think we as an institution, we as an industry, need to go back to the future, like Marty McFly, to what universities at one point were like. And in his 1987 book, Wendell Berry said that universities are places where we create humanity, where we engage in culture, where we challenge ideas, even ideas we don't like. And that's what I think universities can be and should be, because that is preparing us for our experiment in democracy to maintain itself. If all we can do is give our students skills for jobs that might not exist in 5 years, we're not doing our republic a service. Now, citizenship can be measured in several ways. Typically, voter outcome or voter behavior, intention to behave. This is what we measure. There's a whole bunch of variables that I might look. Is it because you don't have enough political knowledge, your family wasn't politically active, whatnot? We pay attention to voting rates. These are national elections. The red is presidential. We tend to show up for those pretty well, 50% of the time, even 60% of us. The blue is midterm elections, so major congressional elections. We're there, about 40% of us are showing up. When we get to local level data, it's not as rosy. So in 2010, the voting rate in Mecosta County, the county we live in, was 22%, which was a 5% increase from 2008 when we elected a president. We need to help our students figure out that citizenship is voting and that's how you exercise your power. But that's not all citizens do, and getting our students to vote isn't what university should be about. It should be about this other stuff that citizens do. So we're inundated with information. There's lots of news. The 24/7 news cycle is kind of a monstrosity. But a really good citizen can evaluate these messages, see which information is better, see which information passes kind of the sniff test, acquire new information, and make better decisions. That's something that we can do as faculty. That's something that we can do as a university. That's something that's valuable to our students and to our society that kind of helps us offset why it's so expensive to come here. This over here, this blob, this is a visualization of the political blogosphere. The blue is Democrats, the red is Republicans, the yellow are the few and far between people who actually talk to both. This is not something we inherently are good at. We like, as human beings, things that are similar to us. We dislike things that are different than us. This is something that can be taught and needs to be taught. We're in an increasingly polarized political environment. We can teach students, we can engage students, we can challenge students to confront information they would not necessarily seek out themselves. That's something that a good citizen does. Citizens also make communities a community. Otherwise, it's just a place to live. It's where your house is. If you never go outside, if all you have are taxes that pay for police officers and firefighters, you don't have much of an interesting place to live. You don't have a community. Citizens make places communities. When there's strong communities, people want to invest in that community. That does attract some jobs sometimes. Not that I'm necessarily saying jobs are everything, but we can attract jobs if you have strong communities. Strong communities are built on strong citizenship. So what can we do here at Ferris? We'll be greedy. We'll be the only one that knows the secret, and we're going to start churning out citizens. There's not one college here that we have that is not touched by the political world, the political trappings around us. And there's also not one college here that our students wouldn't benefit from having contact with during their years here at Ferris. We have broad ranges of pragmatic, skills-based classes, and also more theoretical and abstract conceptual classes. When people are exposed to both of those types of experiences, they're going to be better thinkers, more creative thinkers, more flexible thinkers. They'll have a deeper understanding. They're going to be more well-rounded students, the stuff that we say we want out of general education. I think that we can, as an institution, commit ourselves a little bit more to offering that type of experience, being a little bit more liberal arts oriented so that our students have the flexibility for careers that we don't even know exist yet, or for situations that we don't even know exist yet. If that earlier economic trend continues, at some point there may be no jobs for anyone, and we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with all of our time when the labor market no longer works. Those are complex problems that a liberal arts education with a skills-based experience prepares our students for. I think also as faculty member in our classes, we can do a little bit more, and I personally try to do this, to explain to our students what is the context in which this situation is going on. You know, there's not, I can't think of a class that is offered here on campus where you can't explain what the context is of the knowledge that you're providing your students. Why is it that this kind of scientific endeavor is under attack? Why is it controversial? You can't just give them, here's the number. We need to do more to explain why is this number important? What was the question that this number was answering? I also think as a university, we could do a little bit more with our evaluations. We should not, when it comes to graduation, say, good, we have processed the next generation of laborers. Go out and get a job. When we get to graduation, we should be able to answer to ourselves, have we made these students better people that are going to go on and make our country better, make sure that our democracy stays strong, and that they are nimble and flexible for the challenges of the future. I would like to conclude with what I think makes the United States a unique place. It's not our ability to create new innovations, have new jobs, have new markets. That's a byproduct of our ability to cultivate learned people. And we have had, during our 200 years, we were incredibly fortunate that our democracy didn't fall apart. How many revolutions ultimately fail? Ours didn't. We created a civilian government when that's not normally the outcome. And how fortunate are we that those original kind of founding fathers were well-educated, well-rounded people who were broadly read and broadly educated so they could take all these concepts and put them together. We're also very fortunate that we are one of the few countries in the history of humanity where we fought ourselves and it didn't end in a military dictatorship. That takes an incredible leader, but that also takes an incredibly committed population where they have gotten a level of education where they are willing to participate in this experiment. And I think that we, as a university, as individuals, as an industry, have a responsibility to make more people like this. No one remembers Susan B. Anthony because she was a teacher or a farmer. No one remembers Abraham Lincoln because he was a lawyer. And no one remembers Martin Luther King just because he was a reverend. They made a big impact on our society, on our lives, and how we govern ourselves. And I think we need to imagine more for our students when they can't imagine enough of that they could be like this. We need to imagine more than just this for our students. Thank you very much.